Is this going to be the last explosive crypto bull run we have, where we can commonly get 5, 10, 20x on most altcoins, and everything past this bull run will look something like the stock market, right? Boring 5, 10, 20% gains year on year. That question and many more will be answered, right? Is ICP a better investment than the Render network? Or more importantly, should we reduce our sell levels on all of our altcoins? Because we've had such a large dip recently, many whales have been able to buy these altcoins at a lot cheaper than what we have, which means they'll likely sell a lot cheaper than we expect. So strap yourselves in, guys. There was 32 comments on a recent poll I put into my private community saying, guys, if you want your questions answered, well, now's the time to do it, right? So that is the purpose of this video. It's to do so in a candid way. It's to do so enjoying a nice cup of coffee. Yes, Crypto Millionaire is loading for many of us in this video. I want to try and do this once a month. I promised this many months ago. Of course, Q&As are very important for you to share your thoughts or ask the questions and me to provide my personal opinion on. I'm not saying these are all facts. Remember, a lot of you guys have to understand, I'm a single person. I have a team helping me, of course, but at the end of the day, we can only predict certain things based on what we've been given. This video or some of these opinions might be invalid in the next 12 months. And that's a very important mindset for any investor and trader to have. Things can change day by day in a market like this. Strap yourselves in. Let's begin. Oh, before I forget, guys, do not forget, if you find yourself enjoying this video, hit that like button. And while you're down there, hit the damn subscribe button as well, because that's going to benefit you the most this bull run. I can tell you right now, you're going to learn a lot on this channel, and it does help support me. So thank you very much for doing so. So question number one here, let's begin things with a bang, right? We have a question here from Maria saying, with more centralized mainstream crypto adoption with the ETFs and tokenization, etc., do you think this could be our last true crypto bull run? And to answer this pretty simply, I think in terms of these explosive gains that we're seeing, able to get these 5, 10x's in most of the top 100 to 200 coins, and you can kind of mix and match depending on the narrative and how memeable the project is. Top 2, 3, 400, you can look for some 20x's here commonly. Okay, yes, I do. I actually think the next bull run, we're going to move away from my Pumpamentals research plan that I've conjured up based on looking through the metrics and all the boring back-end stuff, to then realizing most of this is built on speculation. Of course, right? It's crypto. None of it makes sense right now. I believe after this, we'll move from that into utility. So these coins like XRP, Hedera, Casper with the C, XDC network, all these other Web 2 coins will do really well. Quant, of course, included in that as well. So you will likely see me realize this as the next bull run and bear market progresses, as I did the last 1.5 to 2 years with this bull run, and begin to figure out what the next sort of trend or narrative will be. So I think past this point in time, we'll see again Larry Fink, tokenization, and we'll see the mainstream adoption of, I think, DeFi within these Web3 ecosystems really take off first, and then from there likely have things begin to mature, and these Web3 coins maybe even having regulation imposed on them at the very base level. For example, there might be regulation for Near Protocol, Hedera, Solana, Ethereum to abide by to some degree, in which would, therefore cascade onto the bottom layers. So applications like dApps and layer 2s and so on. But that might be a bit extreme and far-fetched and maybe not ever happen. But I do think that to some degree, we're not going to see the same gains, just because we'll have a lot more money flow in, because the use cases will actually be there. Especially we'll see some of these Web 2 coins with a hyper focus on utility, like the ones I mentioned before, XDC, Hedera, and so on, do really, really well. Catch people by surprise because they are doing real things. So yes, great question, Maria. And unfortunately, I think as any market matures, we will see diminished returns over time. Next question here is from Pierre. He says, hey, Kyron, thanks for taking the time to answer our questions. I started into crypto with FOMO in 2022 and have been way too over-diversified with about 50 coins in his portfolio. How or when is it best to reduce the amount of coins you have? I know now at the last leg up will have to be good, but I missed that. Any thoughts? So he's experienced the last bull run or towards the end of it. He knows how explosive these gains are, but he has too many altcoins in his portfolio. Guys, I cannot stress this enough. This is one of the things I preach in my private community. You really want to have less than 15 coins as a passive crypto investor. Here's the reason why. When you have a large portfolio, you're stretching your time too far, right? If you have a regular work life and a social life, what you're pretty much saying is, I am able to manage the research in 50 coins, and because crypto moves 24 hours every single day of the week, every day, every minute. So if one of your 50 coins was to go up explosively and most of them are down, you're going to be looking and researching the coins that are down and think, nothing's happening. One coin's up or one coin's had FUD and fallen down, and you can't make the executive decision to hold it, sell it, or continue dollar cost averaging, right? So you have to make these critical decisions early on, like right now, and actually think about culling some of these coins. And I say culling because we are looking to get rid of coins that you might love them all, but we have to make that decision. So it's about the ones that you're least convicted in. And that's what I would say to you, Pierre, is look at the ones you're least convicted in. The ones that hold more risk, like the lower market cap coins, or the ones that you're actually looking and hoping for way too high expectations on. The question then becomes, okay, well, we can pick these coins out. You might highlight them on Google spreadsheet, for example, but when do we actually sell? Because they might be down, all right? If they're down, then that becomes a whole problem of how much are they down? If they're down $1,000, but your portfolio is $1 million, well, that's arguably negligible. If your portfolio is $10,000 and you're down $1,000, that's 10%. So you don't want to be losing too much. I've got obviously a course all on this, but I'm not going to tell you guys to go buy that. What I will say, generally speaking right now, is about 5 to 15% down on any given coin from your average buy-in price is usually okay to cut a loss, but you have to know where that money you're cutting from, that new cash you now have, is going. It's, in my opinion, it's got to go somewhere. Not financial advice, none of this, of course, is. It's got to go somewhere, at least not immediately, but you have to have an actionable plan for that cash as soon as you can. So 50 coins, way too much. I think 15 is probably the most you should look to have. And I think if you're someone who can dedicate 10 minutes per project per day, I think, maybe 20 coins is probably where you're looking at, right? So you don't want to have too few coins, but I think 25 is probably the threshold, even for someone who spends all day, every day in crypto. And by the way, a quick tip here, and I've mentioned this many times on videos, guys, is if you are someone that does hold too many coins, but you don't want to give any of them up, the fastest way you can research and keep tabs on each coin is to make a new Twitter account, is to follow 3 main important people. One, the project themselves, or if it's Hedera, it's Hedera, or if it's Solana, it's the Solana Foundation. If it's let's say ICP, it's the Divinity Foundation. You want to follow the number one person that tweets about them the most. So I wasn't going to share my screen in this video, but again, given this circumstance, it's very important. So come to lunacrush.com, go down to whatever coin, let's say it's Solana, okay? And just come to the top creators part, right? You can see here, Mike. I would go ahead and follow Mike. Matter of fact, what I would do is follow each of these top creators, because someone like Miles is a great influencer, but he talks about many coins. So you really want to be with the guy like Mike Solana that is what's called an evangelist, right? The top person who loves the coin to death. He will literally only talk about Solana. Follow that guy as well and keep tabs on YouTube videos. Stay up to date and find yourself having to enjoy this process. This isn't, I've got to do this. Find a way to enjoy it. And the third would be following some sort of like foundation, right? So if you're following Solana itself, follow the Solana Foundation as well. If there only is the foundation, that's okay. You can follow another influencer. So at least 3 you want to be following at all times per project. Make sure you have the bell on, of course, for all of that, and you should be set. Maybe you can even go ahead and follow someone, of course, like Miles, that does cover a wide array of coins as well. Juliet asks, hi all, although scared at one point, I did not sell any altcoins in my portfolio. I figured the market will eventually change, whether it takes a day, a week, a month, or a year. Very good mindset, by the way, to have, Juliet. Well done. I was going to wait it out rather than taking a huge loss. Perhaps at the time it was a crazy decision, but seeing 30 to 50% discounts, she scooped up some of those bargains. That right there is what you call a true investor. Buying when there's blood in the streets, even if the blood is your own, Baron Rothschild. Hey, Kyron, here is a question that you can actually potentially use for the video. The question is, what should one do if they actually sold the bottom? So thanks for this, Juliet. So my answer is, if you manage to sell the bottom, I actually made a video last night talking about this, right? So some people have this idea, and again, I had myself until I made that video last night, that there was actually a case to be made that if you sold an altcoin at even a 50% loss and transferred the money you lost and remaining into a new altcoin, that you could possibly look to buy the bottom or again reinvest into the same altcoin at that discount and make more multiples back. But actually running the math through, again, go ahead and watch that video, right, last night. It actually worked out that it's far better for you just to hold the coin and not sell it. Non-financial advice, okay? Many variables play into it. That video covered it all. But to actually answer the question, if you sold the bottom and you're actually holding cash right now, you never actually made that decision, then you need to really consider and ask yourself the question, is this something I want to have exposure to again? You prove to yourself a very important point, okay? You prove to yourself that you don't have conviction in either those altcoins or crypto in general. We've actually had a few people I personally know step away from crypto after this crash because it just psychologically, it was too much for them at the time. That's very mature. Think about it like you're a human. Forget the market for a second. Is this money you can afford to lose? Take a portion of that cash you might possibly have now and think about how much would I be willing to literally lose. If it's none of it, keep that cash out of the market, in my opinion. It's just not for you. Go invest in some index funds or whatever it might be in the stock market, okay? This isn't for you. But if you have 10 grand, let's say you sold 50% of your portfolio, you now have 10K cash. If you think to yourself, well, the 10K I have in there right now is all I'm willing to lose, so be it. Again, this isn't a game of how far you can get ahead of everyone else. This is a game of how much you can put yourself ahead in life. If that's turning $100 into $1,000, you've just made money that could possibly change the direction and course or speed up your life. Okay, for me, it's a different amount of money, but again, it's different for every person. Analyze this yourself. That's why we like to set goals in the private community. Great question, Juliet. So David asks the question here. Hey, Kyron, wondering if you plan to adjust any of your sell levels after this recent dip or if it is business as usual. Well, it's kind of primarily business as usual, but a great question, David. So I think for the most part, what I've been telling the guys in the private community, and by the way, you guys, if you want the insider tips, the daily information that I drop based on what I'm feeling and saying, the private community is where it's at. Obviously, links down below the vault, because I've been telling these guys for a while now, from where we kind of land on these altcoins, I would sort of say a rough 10x from these prices are what you should really look at to get out of, even a little bit less. So what I mean here is I'll actually show you my screen in a second. If Celestia falls down to $4 or $5, look for $40 or $50 to be roughly a safer exit. Now, of course, I think Celestia and these coins can go to a much higher level than what I'm saying here, but it's about thinking like a whale. So what I'm sort of saying here is a coin like Celestia is a perfect example of what I'm saying, right? Essentially, Celestia's kind of found support down here at about $4.75 or $4.20, if you will, right? Down here seems to be a pretty decent level of support. So what I actually think here is that Celestia is probably looking at about $45 to where whales might want to get out. And that is, again, a safe bet. A lot of these guys have vesting in Celestia. So a lot of these guys have like really cheap tokens, like 1 or 2 cents. Like they're 1,000x up right now, or whatever it is. So you got to remember that they will be loading up their bags even more because vesting unlocks over a period of time. So they're not going to have all their tokens unlocked. They like Celestia. They believe in Celestia. Again, this is hypothetical. I've just picked Celestia out of a hat, right? But they essentially will look to buy these lows-ish, again, $4.20. I don't think these guys are literally timing the bottom. They might be buying up here around $7 or $8. But they're buying the dip, and then they'll sell it likely at 10x. 10x is usually the sort of average these VCs like to exit these coins at for a good return. No one's going to complain about a nice even 1,000 or 900% gain, basically, right? But the reason why I bring up vesting again is because they're not going to nuke the coin either. We think about them buying at these low levels and assume to ourselves, well, if they buy down here, like let's say an average of $7, they're going to now sell at $70. Again, that's the philosophy I'm saying here, but they won't sell all at once and nuke the coin's value, because if they do, and of course they sell some of the coins that have been accruing over the course of time, well, guess what? They're not going to get any of the remaining vesting tokens that they've been waiting so long for, because everyone will deem it as a dead coin, because that's the way that crypto bros think. They think if a coin dumps, it's a bad coin. They have no conception of value, and kind of for good reason. Many of these coins are vaporware, right? But what I'm sort of saying, the principle here is, guys, it's going to drop. They're going to sell at maybe these 10x levels, roughly speaking, $70 maybe for Celestia, but it'll still go up. They will sell over time, okay? So that's hopefully going to answer the question for you there, David. Ultimately speaking, to summarize, I think that we should look at about a 10 to 15x on a quality coin from these lows as a safer bet. Even if the green zone is higher, I would try to think about getting lower just to be safer, and maybe leaving some more of a percentage of your portfolio just for those more explosive gains to hopefully help bring up your portfolio a little bit more. So Beach Bum says, I have a Coinbase account that if it performs as expected, will generate me a considerable return, 7 figures, right? That's a big amount of money. Should I give any consideration to staying in my positions until they qualify for long-term capital gain rates? Meaning, should I wait 12 months from buying each of these coins to ensure that I don't get hit with massive amounts of tax, right? Like literally getting taxed hundreds of thousands of dollars more than waiting even a single day over 12 months, right? Or should I firmly commit to taking profit as soon as my sell levels are hit without regard to tax consequences? So this is a really good question. I think this will apply to a lot of us because a lot of us are buying now. And I spoke about, 12 months plus ago, I created like a sort of time frame diagram on the channel where I spoke about, I think the last positions we should have would be about June, July 2024. Okay, we weren't even in 2024 back then, all right? And that was to ensure that we don't get hit with capital gains tax with about a 3-month to 4-month buffer, expecting us to end in about October of next year. Now, given the lengthening cycle theory, long story short, I think we might actually end within the next 12 months here, my prediction on things. I hope I'm wrong because we'll make more money if I'm wrong and it goes longer, of course. But to answer the question, I think you would be crazy to, and again, I'm not saying that you're crazy, Beach Bum, of course. Lots of respect for you, my man. But I think it's crazy to be in a position where you've actually, your sell levels are in front of you. Maybe you haven't sold yet because you were like, oh, maybe I should wait. And the coin's like 10, 20, 30% past some of your sell levels. And you're thinking, should I keep holding off? This coin keeps going up and it's moving quite steady for the chance to possibly sell all at once and remove the chance to get hit with more capital gains tax, right? To get hit with like, again, hundreds of thousands, maybe even close to 7 figures in tax. I mean, it's a lot of money. And my answer is no. I reckon just take the money and run. Deal or no deal, take the 500K. Don't go 50-50 on it. Don't go for the $1 million and get out. That's what I would personally say. But you guys should know by now, I'm very much someone who avoids risk at all costs because I was in a bull run and lost it all, okay? So I want to make money. That's my 2 cents. It's better you make the money and pay the tax on it than make no money and pay no tax at all. So that's my 2 cents, but that's a very good question because I'm sure some of you have the exact same one down below as well. So we have one more question here, then I'll answer the one for lastly here with the ICP versus render. But Fred asks another very versus question, right? He says, I have grown doubtful of one of my current big bags. I'm not married to any of the big bags, but want to replace them with Ondo, Aero, or Celestia, so these 3 coins. Any thought on which one may perform better with the current data? And he said he knows, not financial advice. Love you, Fred. So in this case, it's a very good question, by the way. We're pretty much pitting up against each other, Ondo, Aero, and Celestia. Now, a few of the guys like David actually weighed in here and said, hey, this is what I think will do better based on their personal opinion. And one thing that we can get wrong, guys, is using price predictions on my price prediction sheet or what I say in my videos, and then maybe going out and finding 10 other influencers, finding the rough average price predictions and going with that. Let me tell you something right now. Most people I watch on their price prediction videos have copied the price predictions from other influencers themselves, myself included. Like the reasoning and justification behind some of these prices that I see in these videos, I'm like, okay, that was what I said in my video, right? Nothing to say wrong against it. They might just agree with it. That's fine. That's fine. But I'm saying here, the point being that it's word of mouth. People just carry across a prediction they heard from someone else without putting the work in. And that honestly means that we end up getting to a price which may not actually be accurate, or at least the most up-to-date price prediction. Again, things move quite fast in crypto. So what I would go ahead and say, if I'm going to be choosing one of these 3, is number 1, you personally, what is your risk? If you're selling a coin that's in a pretty low market cap, like let's say it's Flux, for example, 100 mil market cap or 300 mil market cap, that's a low/mid-risk coin based on its market cap. If you then wanted a 20x on that coin, that then is like a 30 or 40% risk in terms of multiples. So you're trying to find a coin here to match that sort of ability, or again, offset the risk with a much safer coin with lower multiples. In this case, you're almost guaranteeing your return. So the reason I say this is because the difference between Ondo and Aero and Tia and Aero is that Aero is a much lower market cap. It fits in the middle market cap range. Celestia and Ondo more comparable in terms of possible gains and safety. Personally speaking, going off just generalization here and going off what I would personally think of doing here, considering it's one of your big bags, I'm going to assume that it's probably a coin you kind of want to perform well, and I'm going to assume you probably want between a 10 to a 15x. That's what most people want out of the market. I would personally actually suggest these 3 coins are fantastic picks. So choosing one over the other is going to be very hard. And this answer is going to probably annoy you, Fred, and many others, is that it's all going to literally come down to what narratives you're missing in your portfolio. If you have 3 RWA coins, if you have Eigenlayer, or like, let's say you have Near Protocol, you don't need real-world assets. You don't need data availability. What you need is DeFi. I don't mean to give you guys the finger. What you need is DeFi, right? So that would make Arrow a better pick, okay? If you're looking for more multiples, Arrow's a better pick, in my opinion. Much more multiples in the tank, I believe, than the other 2 coins. If you're missing real-world assets or data availability, you have Ondo and Celestia. So I know it's not going to be an amazing pick. And if I was to say one of these 3 coins, it's going to piss 2/3 of the viewers off. So I yield. And lastly, and by the way, before I answer this last one, guys, remember that the rest of the questions will be answered in an upcoming vlog in level 2 in the vault. The question of ICP or render, well, again, this sort of falls back into the whole Fred situation where I'm going to piss 50% of my viewers off, and, you know, that ultimately comes down to it. The thing is, guys, ICP and render, I commonly say these 2 coins, as well as Hedera HBAR, are at my number 1 pick. I've normally said Hedera and ICP, but I think render actually goes up there as well, because I see these 3 coins doing well in a cycle that obviously may not be very similar to the last few cycles where we now focus on utility. They will do well on those bull runs and perpetuity. So like these 3 coins, I would happily hold, go on vacation and come back in 20 years and be like, I'm in bloody good coins. I'm very happy and confident in my positions. How much money have I made, right? I wouldn't be nervous at all. So pitting these 2 against each other here, it is extremely difficult to me. It would ultimately come down to multiples, right? Because I think both coins, AI, Deepin, obviously ICP hits Web3 layer 1. It also kind of hits interoperability. Render also kind of hits the Solana ecosystem. There's so many positives for each, and I could talk all day about a toy. I could talk all day about Definity. It's very difficult for me to say, but I get it. You guys want to know my opinion. So in my personal opinion, what would I go for this bull run? I would probably go with render because multiples. It will have more multiples, I believe, than ICP. However, that's because the market cap right now is give or take about 2x smaller. So we've seen them both react really well. Render right now at $4.80, $4.90. I mean, that to me just is a no-brainer. I think this coin can shoot back up to $15, $18 like that. And I believe with a little bit of NVIDIA news, again, it's very heavily tied to NVIDIA. I think we're just going to see an explosion. Also, it also runs Octane X as well, which is a part of what Apple has sort of been promoting recently. And of course, ICP, like I say, many, many great things about ICP. I made a recent very bullish video on that. I could be wrong. Maybe ICP makes more results, but it would come down to what I think would make more returns. And I think right now, Render would make more returns than ICP. I mean, both have a deflationary token. Both have very good FDV values. And honestly, they're a very similar project, just with respects that ICP can host applications and do a whole bunch of other stuff. But does it hit the sort of jack of all trades sort of thing, where it's like jack of all trades, master of none, whereas Render's like the master of one, however the rest of it goes. Anyway, I'll leave it there, guys. Please don't be offended, right? I love both coins. They're literally up there with like tied my number 1 coins of all time. I digress. Thank you very much. I look forward to talking to you all very, very soon. Again, if you want the rest of these questions answered, you know what to do. Take good care, guys. Bye-bye.